Senator Rubio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, Secretary. Thank you for coming down to Florida after the storm and going down to Flamingo and the Everglades with us. And it's a place I frequently fish off of, and we're making progress there. So thanks for your visit and being a part of it. I do want to take exception to something that was said here earlier, complete untruth. Senator Merkley claimed that Oregon's coast was the most beautiful in the world, and that's just not true, because obviously Florida holds that distinction. So
I stay out of that.
Yes, sir, I understand. But I needed to correct the record. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Everglades. Its restoration is the most ambitious, I think the most ambitious environmental restoration in the history of all mankind, and you can make that argument. And we've made real progress, and we're on the cusp now of making real advances on the completion of several important projects. So the integrated delivery schedule for that restoration assumed federal contributions of $147 million across the Corps and the Department of Interior towards that restoration in fiscal year 2019, and then an average of more than $185 million from 2020 through 2030. This year, the administration only budgeted $118 million after requesting $131 in fiscal year 2018. Unfortunately, we're heading in the wrong direction, and I hope that the budget does not reflect the administration's commitment to Everglades restoration. So my question for you and obviously for the administration is to ensure that, is this the direction that we're headed with the Everglades restoration? Because if it is, I think it portends poorly to the future of this project, which is a critical national treasure, not just to Florida, but for the country.
No, and when I went down there, as you know, it remains a priority. I think it's as much a structural as it is funding. And we talked about the way that the project is with the Army Corps of Engineers is, rather than have approval of one project, each subcomponent has to be categorized as a new start. And that itself lengthens the amount of time on these projects and doesn't give the Army Corps of Engineers enough flexibility. So just throwing more money at it, I don't think the solution. I think is streamline the process so we can make better decisions sooner, so there's not language. There is no doubt in my mind that the health of the Everglades depends on the right plumbing of the water, and that's the priority. And it will take a serious effort between all players and all stakeholders to prioritize the plumbing first, because if we don't get the plumbing right, the rest of it will never, ever be healthy.
Yeah, and I think most would agree that we'd want to have a more efficient way of getting approval on these projects and moving forward. But it still gets back to the question of the total sum. And I actually agree. In fact, the longer we take to complete these projects, the more expensive they become. And so just going back to the total number, why is the number in 2019 significantly less than it was in 2018, when it was 131 in 18, and now the proposals for 118? Is that a function of the projects that are ready that you think could be funded this year, or is that what's behind the reduction, since we know that in order to continue the pace on this project, to be able to truly say that we're on pace to do it, we got to be near the 147. It's not just throwing money. That's what this is budgeted at if it stays on schedule. And for every year we fall off schedule, the price tag may actually go up. So what's the new number this year lower than last year reflective of?
I agree. Yeah, I'll work with you. I think some of it has to do with our ability to execute. Again, because if we could work together and it's not just a question of money, and we agree it's a priority, and I'm committed to make it a priority with you, but we have to make it also structurally easier, so when we have funds, they actually go to moving the ball ahead. We're not getting far, and I would contend we could double the money, and we wouldn't make double the amount of movement up the field. Is structurally we have to work together. And on the 14th of June, I think we're having the South Florida Ecosystem Task Force, and I would invite you or your member of your staff to be a part of that and prioritize your efforts with it. And then we come to what we need, probably tweaks in the law a little to allow a prioritization and making sure we streamline, and the money itself goes to bringing the ball up the field, so to speak, and getting things done rather than just continuing the bureaucracy. Because right now, as you know, and you follow this issue better than I think anybody, is that we're on pace never to get it done. I mean, quite frankly, we need to shorten the timeline. We can do it if we allow the right people the flexibility and the power to get it done without having to go through line by line by line by line and approval on each of those lines. If we do it as a system, we can get this project done.
And I would say that I clearly am not a believer in just throwing money at things, you know, and in this particular case, there are projects that are ready to go. If the money were available, we can move on it. But the one thing I want to make clear, because I do think you've touched on something that a lot of people would agree with, and so I just want to leave it clear, it's your position that individual Everglades projects should not each be subject to New Start's designation, that we should be able to do things systemically.
I do, and there are some projects that are actually ahead of schedule, so it's not all doom and gloom. There's a trail system, there's some gates and stuff that are actually ahead of schedule, so that's good.